There's no denying one of the most impressive and unbelievable feats done through social media was when a group of fans around the world worked together to push a movie studio to invest $70+ million into an unfinished film and release it. By now I'm sure you all have heard the in-depth version of the Snyder Cut story. Essentially hours after the release of Justice League in 2017, a movement called #ReleaseTheSnyderCut was created on Twitter. In just under 3 years' time and thousands of dollars raised for suicide prevention, Warner Brothers worked out a deal with director Zack Snyder to release his version of Justice League. The movie would eventually release on HBO Max and other streaming platforms around the globe roughly 10 months after the announcement. And while fans of the film will claim the movie to be an undeniable success, no official numbers have ever been revealed by Warner Brothers, leaving everyone speculating on its actual performance. The Snyder Cut, and in turn the SnyderVerse movements, started off admirably. The desire for a creative director to be allowed to complete his vision, all while promoting and raising money for suicide prevention, were great platforms. The early days were full of excitement and optimism. Even Zack Snyder himself eventually joined in on the fun, posting unreleased and unseen photos from his version of the movie on his Vero account. Shortly after the announcement of the release, though, things began to spiral out of control within the fandom. Poachers who were against the movement began coming out of the woodwork. We were seeing YouTube channels, podcasts, and even books get created all in the name of the Snyder Cut just to gain some sort of clout. But even during all this, the excitement still existed, and the hype began to grow for a possibility of more Snyder DC content. Where did these ideas come from, though? Well, it came in the form of those aforementioned podcasts and YouTube channels. False hope was beginning to spread, but because everything was leading towards the Snyder Cut's release, the fans stayed in their lane pretty well. That was until Ray Fisher called out Warner Brothers and many attached to the studio for acts of racism and sexism. His accusations were seemingly the start of the backlash against Warner Brothers on a toxic level. Now, that's not to downplay what happened to Fisher and his co-stars. Absolutely, those issues needed to be handled and addressed. But unsurprisingly, the fans of Zack Snyder, the ones calling for the Snyder Cut and the continuation of his arc, were the ones to jump on and support Ray with a new hashtag, I Stand With Ray Fisher. Because of this, both the SnyderVerse movement and the Fisher movement melded together. One that was for artistic integrity and suicide prevention, and the other for removing racist, womanizing pieces of shit from a studio. However, those two just don't go together very well, and it became apparent very, very quickly. Fans began hounding studio execs on social media and boycotting other DC films and projects. All this despite the changes already made at the studio, where the old regime who pushed Snyder out were already gone. Things didn't end there, though. Ray Fisher's crusade continued for months, seemingly riling up the crowds weekly. We then had scoopers, or as I like to call them, grifters, report on what can only be presumed as false claims of a continuation of the SnyderVerse while attaching fan-favorite actors to unofficial projects. This here is where the clout war took off. Conmen such as Mikey Sutton, Giant Freakin' Robot, Lightcast, and Small Screen, as well as many others, were all trying to formulate the next big bullshit story to drive traffic and memberships to their respective outlets. And many fans began eating it up. As the Ray Fisher attacks began to subside, the toxicity and hate towards Warner Brothers by the fans did not. Executives began to call out these people in articles and even attempted to put to bed that there would be no continuation of the SnyderVerse or a release of another director's version of a film, David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Despite this, though, the grifters continued their cons and promised that what everyone wanted was on the way. Zack Snyder didn't help matters much either, which it's hard to blame a man for wanting to continue something that he invested so much time on. But his cryptic responses to being asked if he would be back to do more, and even ominous posts on Vero, have fueled the rage in the fandom. However, since Discovery took over Warner Brothers, Zack has not been so playful with his loyal base. This could be because he is busy over at Netflix, or possibly he knows the writing is on the wall. Fans, though, continue to be divided and toxic. It's been nearly 2 years since the release of Zack Snyder's Justice League, and the excitement, while not as prevalent as before, has surely continued, albeit in a negative way at times. A movement that was built on hope excitement, and integrity has become nothing more than a fandom covered in incoherent and ignorant demands, while claiming to be about something it so obviously is no longer about. While I myself was not there at the very beginning, I've had heard stories, seen the amazing work that was done, and was privileged to celebrate in the success. I fought for Us United, I partook in the Twitter campaigns. The sad truth now, though, is the fandom has gone so far over the toxic side that it isn't fun. It isn't filled with hope and joy. A successful movement at this point is impossible, as there's really no clear agenda anymore. The Snyder Cut movement fought for artistic integrity, suicide prevention, and allowing one man to complete a film he was so unceremoniously removed from. The SnyderVerse movement is about what? The continuation of Snyder's vision? Well, go ask 5 people and each person will give you varying ideas of what that actually means. The noble side of raising money and awareness for suicide prevention has been long lost as well. So what is the point at this time? The fandom has lost its way. Many are following lies of con men, while others are just lost with no agenda. What we all did for Snyder, his family, and suicide awareness is nothing short of incredible. We seemingly achieved the impossible, and to think that without the same level of hope, excitement, unity, and drive that anything like it could be accomplished again is foolish thinking. If you truly look at it, what is happening now is doing far more harm to those we helped than any good. I say sit back, rejoice in the achievements that have been attained, and never forget the incredible journey it was. But if you were to ask me, at this time, the SnyderVerse movement has come to an end.